He thought he was watching her, but she was watching him. He thought he was trespassing, but he was invited. He knew he had gone too far. He couldn't stop. He saw exactly what she wanted him to see. Brian De Palma, the modern master of suspense, invites you to witness a seduction, a mystery, a murder. Body double. You can't believe everything you see.
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls. Prepare for Prattle.
Choose a side in the Clone Wars. Welcome to Prattle World. I am your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan. And in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to Clone Wars, where multiple similar pieces of media clash to be crowned champion. Several go in and only one comes out. So we're doing something a little different today. We are expanding the world and expanding the parameters of the Clone Wars for the very first time. You've heard them before, but you've not heard them quite like this. 3 films are going to be in this time. 3. And I am joined by my biggest fan, who I consider my biggest fan, the most loyal fan of all the podcasts in all the world. I am IAmJACSMusings. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, sir. Thank you. I'm proud to hold that title. That's awesome. I love it.
It is. It's a big title. And it means a lot to me. I just want to say how much I've been enjoying your podcasts, because I think
thank you.
Your voice is one of the most important voices on the Twitter, and now it's in the podcasting world. I love it. You've got so many multiple shows going on. You've got your Season's Greetings. You know, you've got Pop Gorillas, and now you're a co-host of Tony's show with indie comics and everything. You're busier than me.
I know you can't escape me now. It's a bit scary, isn't it? I have to hear my voice all the time, so now everyone else does as well. Poor people. Tony's been such an avenue into this world for me, and he just keeps coming up with good ideas, and I keep saying yes.
You've got to say yes to good ideas. Tony's full of good ideas.
He is, yeah. I mean, I think I would have to quit my job and do this full time if I keep saying yes to any more, which unfortunately I can't afford to do because nobody's paying me for it. But anybody fancies doing that, I'm sure we'll all take it.
I hear you, brother. I hear you. I'll be honest. It's been a busy few months for me. I've had COVID. We've done Grimfest. This is my first podcast post Grimfest, so we're just coming out of that. Fully edited them all. They'll be all released very shortly. It's been an amazing experience, but it's been exhausting. I'm dealing with a new job as well and getting my head around that, and it's very technical. And I'm not a very technical person. I've just had a flu jab today, so if I'm a bit wobbly, I'm a bit way. You know why? I'm all drugged up, full of all the antibodies are kicking in.
Very fitting for the films we're discussing, though, I think.
Yes, I think so. Why don't you? Because this was your idea. It's kind of a little collab, like we were discussing possible Clone Wars in the future and stuff. And I had an idea, you had an idea, and we kind of merged them. They merged together beautifully into this massive, colossal Clone Wars, as I'm going to call it. Why don't you tell the people? I mean, they already know; they've seen the title, but you tell them what we're looking at in many ways but one in our voyeuristic worldview.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're starting with a classic, aren't we? And we're looking at a Hitch. And we could just basically do a whole season of Clone Wars based on people who have ripped off Alfred Hitchcock, I'm sure. That is endless, and that's just De Palma, let alone anybody else. We're moving from Rear Window through to Body Double, which I kept in my head, kept Googling Body Heat, which I knew it wasn't that, but I kept I'm going to watch Body Double today, and then I was totally going in the wrong place.
Well, I'm going to hit you with some trivia. So one of the films that Brian De Palma, while filming Body Double, told the actresses to watch was Body Heat.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So there's definitely that in there. There's that erotic thriller, noirish kind of feel among a million other influences in that film. Yeah. And then this one was all you though. This last film, I was aware of it, but I'd never seen it.
Yeah, it's like a little pretender that I think it's a bit of a sleeper. Like it was a big hit when it came out, but I think, the actor, we'll get into it, I'm sure, has had a bit of a up and down career since, but he was hot stuff at the time. So we're also going to look at Disturbia, which is an unofficial remake, I would say, of Rear Window.
It's interesting, that one as well, because before we get started as well, I just wanted to honourably mention a few similar films that could have easily had a Clone Wars themselves. So speaking of Disturbia, there was a made-for-TV remake of Rear Window with Daryl Hannah and Christopher Reeve. And this was obviously after his accident, and they wrote that into the script, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, amazing.
Kind of a new way of telling that story. And obviously I have seen it, but it's been like 20 years, 15 years or something. But it was interesting to see them kind of use, because obviously with all these films, there's always something that kind of keeps them in the house, or they have a particular issue, be it a psychological issue or physical issue, or under house arrest. But apparently the Disturbia script was being shopped around at that point. And they actually obviously this is now being made. We can't really use ours because it's, again, a take on Rear Window. So years later, he rewrote it, modernized it. We're living in this digital computer age. Everything's recorded. But also there's Sharon Stone's Slither, which I think owes a little to, which is another erotic thriller, which again...
I didn't watch that much as a teenager.
No, of course not. Of course not. You're not the only one.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But there's that as well, and obviously that's about surveillance, being watched, and the voyeuristic. It's weird because Billy Baldwin plays a guy in Flatliners who kind of does the same thing because he records women he sleeps with in that film.
That's right. It's been a long time since I've seen that, but yeah, you're bringing that back to me. Yeah,
I do like Flatliners. Great cast as well.
Yeah, cracking movie.
Joel Schumacher. He's had his ups and downs himself. He
has. Yeah.
God rest his soul, but he was very, very good at what he did. And then there's a couple of films that have come out just this year. So on Amazon Prime, you have The Voyeurs, which I think is, again, a kind of more sexy version. And then there's The Woman in the Window, which you suggested as well, with Amy Adams.
Yeah, which I haven't seen yet, but I will because it's got Amy Adams in it. I hear it's not that great, but I mean, it's got Amy Adams in it, so I will watch it.
I'm sold. So here we are. This is it. It begins. So I'm gonna keep an eye on the time, because I think we could talk about Rear Window, Body Double, and Disturbia till the cows come home.
Agreed.
Because I've really enjoyed all of these films. I don't think there's a bad one in the bunch. But we have to have a winner. We do have to have a winner. And I've come up
somebody will emerge victorious.
They have to. I've even come up with tiebreakers just in case we come up to that point, but we're not there yet. So let's begin at the beginning, at the inspiration for all these films I've just mentioned. Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. So tell us the plot of Rear Window.
I mean, sometimes plots are almost like too simple for their own good, aren't they? But here we have a plot that is simple, and because of its precision, I think, and that's a really good word to use for this film in general. So James Stewart has a broken leg and is confined to his apartment. And during that time, he's got interested at nosing at his neighbours and what's going on across the courtyard in this beautiful design set. And then he notices that the ill wife from directly across from his apartment is not there one morning. and he comes to suspect that perhaps the husband has done away with her and gets his girlfriend and his housekeeper, his maid, involved in his voyeurism and his spying and his ultimately like plans to investigate a bit of PIing off the books to see if they can work out exactly what's happened.
Yeah, I mean that's it, and I think it's brilliant in its simplicity.
Agreed.
But its delivery is so complex and there's so many layers. This was, obviously we're talking about a film in 1954. I want to say 50 something.
Sounds about right. Yeah, 54. Yeah,
54. Yeah. So obviously there is still a lot that's fairly relatable to it. There's still something to find within this. Obviously, probably not as relatable as something more modern like Disturbia, for example. But there is a lot there, and there's a lot of kind of psychology, deep psychology, and kind of, again, this kind of exploration of voyeurism and peeking behind the curtain, seeing something you're not supposed to, the excitement, the risk, the danger, the reward. I think these films definitely have something to be said about maybe the male gaze as well, and the idea
100%, yeah,
the idea of voyeurism, because I think that is very much it's a common thing throughout the films, and whether this is okay, whether it's not, but it's interesting because Hitchcock filmed from the set of the apartment. So Jimmy Stewart's apartment. There's a murder going on. There's a murder over there. I've been practicing, you can tell.
Yeah, it's great.
But he filmed all of the everything from there, as in we are the voyeurs.
Yeah, within the confines. Yeah,
filmmaking and film in a way is voyeuristic. We are looking into people's lives. We are, if it's a what if, we are the watchers.
Yeah,
we see people live and die, but we can't interfere. We can't get involved.
We'll definitely get into that in Body Double.
Oh yes, very much so, very much so. But I love that, and I love that he also had. We're going to talk about the set in a second because it's insane. But all the actors he would direct from that same place. He would not do it from the separate rooms or anything. They all had flesh-coloured earpieces. So he'd be like, Miss Torso, would you please dance around a little more?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sure he did say that a lot.
I'm sure he did. That would not surprise me, knowing old Hitch and his affection for blonde women, I believe he had. Let's call it that. Let's call it that. It's a classic. I saw this. One of my new Patreon subscribers, a very old friend to me, Simon Cottam, introduced this to me when I was very, very young. So maybe in my teens, early teens. And for such an old film to grab me at that age was impressive. I have to say.
Interesting, because I think Rear Window is one of the first Hitchcocks I saw as well. And I'm a little bit, Tony, whenever I talk to him and whenever I'm podcast, he always calls me the film guy, which, I'll take, which is nice. Always heaps that bit of pressure on when then you come on somebody else's podcast talking about films. You have to sound like you know what you're talking about. But look, Hitchcock is obviously a master of what he does, but I wouldn't necessarily choose to put a Hitchcock on, if I'm honest. But Rear Window, something about it, I agree with you, it really grabs you. And I think, we'll get into it. It's a combination of things, but there's definitely something about it that is special, I think.
For research, I asked if you would watch Vertigo as well, because because Body Double is kind of a bit of Vertigo mixed with Rear Window. So it's kind of a little of both. In comparison to Vertigo, like, there's a reason I don't remember Vertigo very well. It's because I don't find it that entertaining. I think it's very melodramatic. I think it's a little dull in places.
Yeah, agreed.
I think there's this is the interesting kind of gothic love story I like, the mystery element, the replacements. Again, there's stuff in it I love, and it's really good and it's well done. And visually, it's quite eye-catching as well. But it doesn't stay with me. It doesn't have that tension like Psycho or like Rear Window. So so that's why I forget it. It doesn't stick in my mind.
I completely agree.
Yeah, it's
a languid movie. Like, everything you just said makes it sound more interesting than it actually is. I think the premise is really fascinating, and I think when you delve into the psychology of Hitchcock as a person, and like you mentioned about his obsession with blondes, and that in this movie a woman's appearance is altered to match a woman who no longer will act for him. All of that's really, really interesting. The film itself, pretty dull.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but I am glad I rewatched it.
Sure.
in regards to this podcast.
Agreed.
But it'll be a very, very long time, I think, if I revisit it. So I love Hitchcock. I love Strangers on a Train. I'm a big fan of a lot of his work. The Birds is great.
Yeah, agreed.
But I think that's one of his weaker ones. Even Rebecca. I really love Rebecca.
I've never seen Hitch's Rebecca, actually.
Oh, it's so good. You did a review on the most recent one, didn't you?
Yeah, the Ben Wheatley, yeah.
Yeah. But I'd highly recommend Laurence Olivier. It's fantastic. And again, a very kind of hoity-toity, well-to-do, kind of stuffy, kind of almost like a period drama. But he knows what he's doing. Hitch knows what he's doing. And that's another excellent Hitchcock film if you haven't seen that. I saw Marnie. That wasn't that great. I didn't really like
That's
Marnie.
the Sean Connery.
Yeah, it's a bit, again, very kind of vertigo for me. Anyway, we're talking Rear Window.
Back to it.
So let's get back on track. So tell us a little bit about the set, because I think all of the information I found out about the set is insane.
As you said, I didn't know that interesting point about how it's all filmed from Jimmy Stewart's set perspective. But then looking out his rear window, you've got this kind of expansive courtyard, haven't you? With a couple of apartments, is perpendicular. I think that's the right word, sort of running away from you, perpendicular towards the back of the apartment block. But really, that's where your focus is. And we've got about 4, maybe 5 key apartments that we're looking at that we can see directly into. As you said, we've got Miss Torso. He's a dancer. And there's a really fascinating, we'll get into maybe idea of male gaze with her character, I thought that was in the movie, way ahead of its time, in many ways, I think. Yeah, then we have this couple, don't we, who the mystery revolves around. There's an elderly couple who let their dog down in a basket, which is super cool. What a great idea that is.
And it's a hot night, so they have the mattress outside.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And it's
set in a really hot summer, isn't it? Correct. Yeah.
That's why everyone has their windows open.
Very clever, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Because why else would everyone have their blinds open, their windows open? Why would you see this stuff? During the winter, that's not going to happen. And again, there's that great line where the dog dies, the dog is murdered. If you don't like dead dogs in films, this one is not for you.
It's true.
And she's like, we're supposed to be neighbours. We're supposed to like each other and talk to each other. We're not neighbours.
That's a great scene, that bit, yeah.
Really, really tense. And everybody comes to the window apart from Thorwell.
Yes. Funny that, isn't it?
Yeah. Some other characters. My favourite is probably Miss Lonely Hearts.
Yes, yeah. That's the elderly lady who's out sunbathing and.
No. That's the sculpture lady.
Oh yeah.
Miss Lonely Hearts is the one in the flat, and she's practicing having dinner with.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The man, and then you've got the slightly lonely piano teacher as well.
Yes,
piano player who keeps playing his music, tries to. I think we hear That's Amore in the film. I think and there's a few other key bits. But here's another interesting thing as well. Most of the film's music and sounds are completely diegetic. So they are created, there naturally to give that feel of a bustling, lived in city, everything's going on, totally natural. And again, it just brings you in. And I will say this, you can tell it's a set.
Of course, yeah.
That's the only thing that kind of slightly takes me out. But again, it's kind of this almost theatrical heightened reality.
Yeah.
Which again, I don't
see him in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of don't mind that. But Hitchcock is doing so much more to make this real. He's doing everything he possibly can to make it as real and as lived in this world as believable as possible. And it's incredible. If we were going off kind of. In this particular podcast, we're looking at the films we enjoy the most. That's number one will be the film we enjoy the most. But these are all very, very good films in their own way. And Hitchcock, I'm not going to say Hitchcock is crap because he's not, and we all know that. He was rubbish. He didn't know what he was doing. But there's so much going on, so many levels to the filmmaking, the psychology, and as well, you'll notice that every single, kind of secondary character, all these people in the windows, all have issues that actually relate to the main character's issue, their relationship, marriage troubles. So it all kind of feeds back into that. And all this, the extra characters, the love story, Grace Kelly's character, not in the original story it was based off.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
All original, created by the writer, created by Hitchcock. Grace Kelly's character was actually based on herself as well,
right.
And her lifestyle and who she is and what she does. But really, really fascinating. And it gives you this breathing, living world where you can believe all this could happen.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about that artificiality. And I think, as you said, like, because it was a special set that was made waterproof, wasn't it? So when they have the rain, like that's actually happening on set and everything is getting soaked. And I really like the small detail of like there's like kind of like the small gap where you can see through to like an alleyway to the road beyond, which of course is just going to be some sort of backdrop. But you get a couple of shots. The best one has been Grace Kelly's character is walking through and she kind of like stops and waves. But that just adds that extra dimension that's very clever. And obviously, as you said, we've then got for them diegetic sounds of, like with the cars and the bus of the city. That's a really nice touch, I think, which, although you're looking at artificiality, that little extra thought, that little extra detail helps to pull you back into the movie, I think.
It's like when I used to do theatre, there's these little, you might be able to see the exit, sign for the fire escape and stuff. But if you can draw them in with these little details, these little kind of flecks and stuff, and it can only be like a really small thing, but it can really draw you in and make you focus and pay attention and be drawn in to the story, to the action, to the characters. And again, he's doing all of that work. And again, he makes it look easy. He makes it look like it's like, oh, this is normal, but genuinely fantastic. But yeah, the set actually took, I think it was, here's an interesting thing. The set actually had water. So they had running water systems.
Oh, yeah.
Miss Torso actually basically lived in her flat.
Great. Like free accommodation whilst you're working. I love it.
Yeah, mental. So this is the biggest set ever built by Paramount. With running water, power in each apartment. It cost $75,000 to $100,000 to make. Had 31 apartments. 12 were fully furnished.
Wow.
And it took 50 men 2 months to build. So that is insane in itself. That would not happen today. No way.
No.
It's just not. But it's incredible that Hitchcock had such a name, had such power, such clout in Hollywood that you could be like, I need this. This needs to be done. This has to be done.
Probably the only other thing I can think of that maybe goes to that level is when Cameron did Titanic. He only built half the ship, of course, but the level of detail they went to for that in terms of, he invented a camera that could go deep enough in the ocean in order to find out the exact right lettering and silverware, and like he went to that kind of extreme detail. But you could probably argue it at the height of his powers, he's probably up in the esteem that Hitchcock was when he was at the height of his powers too. Absolutely.
Like if you're talking like box office success, then Cameron is absolutely up there. Whatever you feel about his films, there's no arguing with that kind of money he makes.
Oh yeah, right.
Big money. So and him constantly going, these Terminator films are great. You should definitely check You should definitely check out the newest Terminator film. It's brilliant, honestly.
I fully endorse this one.
Best one yet. Yeah, sure, James. Whatever you say. So the main characters we have basically Jimmy Stewart, who is a photographer who walked in front of a car to get a good photo and broke his leg, and you've got Grace Kelly, who's kind of. I will say this: the age differences for the love interests in the Hitchcock films are quite huge, really.
Yes,
bit creepy, bit weird. Because I think Jimmy Stewart was into his 50s and Grace Kelly's only 25.
Right. Yeah.
And it was the same age difference in Vertigo as well. But that was Hollywood back then. But I actually think like Jimmy Stewart's great. Jimmy, it's
they've got good chemistry.
And they've got good chemistry, and they've got real character, they've got real pathos, they've got genuine issues. Like he genuinely just want to get married because she's very into him, and and it's kind of this odd couple because she's this kind of well-to-do kind of socialite, fashionista, and he's like this like old photographer who's war vet.
He's a bit of rough.
A little bit of rough, that's right. And then you've got his kind of physiotherapist, I guess.
Yeah, I couldn't quite work out what her seems to have like a bit of a jack of all trades.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure what her role was.
Yeah, it's kind of like you need a massage? We'll give you a massage.
Yeah.
I think they said in insurance, she works for the insurance company when he...
Okay.
Something like that. But yeah, she plays, a key part as well. And she gets, very involved in the mystery and the unraveling of the mystery. But I love the dynamic. I love the characters. Again, it kind of brings me back to the kind of theatricality of it. And I know it might just be me being an old thespian, but I noticed a couple of flubbed lines. I was like,
really? Okay.
Yeah, I was like, oh, you flubbed that. But they carry on regardless, as you do. The show must go on. But I was like, oh, they've just flubbed that. But you know what? That's probably the best take. The other takes might have been awful for who knows. But I was like, not quite, it's not like that noticeable. But you can kind of just like, okay. But again, they didn't. Obviously, film wasn't as. It was probably a lot more expensive back then, and they probably didn't have as much. So it was like, I'll have to do. And that sort of thing. Even with the money that they were spending, it was still, still probably quite expensive. I enjoy the conflict. I enjoy because there's all the kind of, because there is like, obviously we were talking about the male gaze and the voyeurism, and that is challenged within this film, even in 1954, like you said, with Miss Torso and the stuff involving Miss Torso, and the fact they would call her Miss Torso, it implies that she's this ballet dancer and stuff. Apparently, the person who played Miss Torso, the woman who played Miss Torso, was told not to get any dancing lessons because it was supposed to look as natural and like she was still kind of learning and practicing, which I really liked. But yeah, there's a lot of that, but it is challenged. And it's like, you're a peeping Tom. This is weird. You shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong. And we've also got his friend who's the police officer, the doubting police officer. And that's kind of the main cast, really. Apart from speaking of people in wheelchairs, obviously Thorwall is played by Ironside himself. Raymond Burr, which is quite interesting. Obviously, they're
connection there,
a little connection, wheelchair connection with the actors. But yeah, I didn't know it was Raymond Burr until I looked it up though, because he spends a lot of the time in kind of shadow, that character, or far away, so you can't really tell. I don't know what you felt about the kind of the main story, the main plot, and the main kind of.
I think it was really interesting because although it's a mystery, there's not really ever any other suspect. Like I think it's this guy. I think he's done this, and then he has, yes. So it's not about it's not who done it. It's how did he do it, and how is he, and is he going to get away with it? Yeah, which I think is really interesting. And the other part of it is that decision to confine this male character, who we were talking about the male gaze. You're right. This male character in his room in a wheelchair really lends like these female characters. It really gives them that kind of sense of agency, and they make decisions which he questions, and he does it in a kind of patriarchal sense. But they're gung ho. I absolutely love it. It's brilliant. And they take these chances and they do what they think's right in order to get this case solved.
And he says, don't do it. Like, don't do it.
Absolutely.
You're women, you're going to get hurt. You're going to mess this up. You're going to do that. And they're like, no, we're involved in this.
Yeah.
You can't go anywhere. You're useless.
Yeah, absolutely. We're
going to get the fucking job done. So
they've got the spade. They're over the wall. They're going for it. Absolutely. Yeah. It's brilliant.
Loved it.
And I think in that regard, I think this does have quite a modern sensibility about its female characters, which in some ways, when we get there, round to Disturbia, it's almost backwards. The male gaze in that is a bit more leering than it's not a bit more leering, it's a lot more leering than Rear Window is, because this Miss Torso character, as you said, even Jimmy Stewart's character in this, I don't know, I'm just saying that. I'm going with it now. Because he's such a force of nature, I think, maybe. His character, you see him watching for a little while. I think as a viewer, when I'm watching, I'm starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable. Like, well, what? But then you see him make the conscious decision. No, I'm not going to watch her. I'm not going to kind of peep on her. It's not in a sexual way. It's not in an attraction way. And then when his policeman friend is in and making commentary, he's like, come on, mate, like, leave it alone. Like, this isn't appropriate. So I think, again, 54, that's really interesting. Because when we get to Disturbia and it's the two teenage boys, they're like, whoa.
Yeah, whoa. Yeah, she's in the swimming pool. Nice.
Yeah.
But even Jimmy Stewart kind of gets on board, because the policeman then stares at Miss Torso, and then he goes, how's your marriage?
Yeah, I love it. It's brilliant, isn't it? Yeah, he totally challenges him. Yeah,
because he knows he was wrong. He knows, I've been leering. I've been maybe looking at this in the wrong way, because like that's his kind of his group of, this is inner circle is two women, and and they are constantly offering their opinions in a good way, in a positive way, and he's going, yeah, fair enough. And he does doubt himself, obviously, the various things where it's like, oh well, I'm sure, but that happened, well, she's in the other country and she said she's there and stuff, and,
because neither of them believe him to begin with, do they? They challenge his ideas.
And slowly but surely they get pulled in, and they get, and it's an obsession, this voyeurism that I'm sure we'll talk about as well in the other films. It becomes an obsession, and it's something they can't stop themselves doing, even when they're like, all the evidence says otherwise. They still are like, no, I've got to keep doing it. I've got to keep watching. I've got to do that. And that there's a lot of humor in. I think there's a lot of humor in all the films as well about the voyeuristic. It's not all like pervy, leery, like deep, heavy breathing.
No, not at all. There's
a bit of fun, and there's a bit of it knows what it's doing. It's aware of the social stigma of the voyeurism and that idea. So it's never like. But like you said, Disturbia is probably the worst one for the leering and the gaze.
Yeah,
I would say. But yeah, it probably was quite quite revolutionary at the time to discuss and to have that. And obviously Hitchcock loved his female characters. They were always very driven and knew what they wanted, and had a lot of agency, like Marion Crane in Psycho, or Tippi Hedren. Don't know her character's name in The Birds, but she meets this guy. She's like, he's handsome, I'm going to drive halfway across the country to meet him, and then birds attack.
But they're not easily pigeonholed. I don't mean this after saying The Birds. The women in Rear Window aren't easily pigeonholed, are they? Which I think is fascinating. Not the two women in the apartment with him, but actually not the women in all the apartment blocks either. When we see, I know it's played for a bit of a gag, but when we see Miss Torso's returning soldier or Navy or wherever he's come from, and he's short, that she's making a conscious decision to be with him, not about looks. And as you said, the scene when the elderly lady challenges about the dead dog. These are all, that could have been the husband's lines. He could have been doing that, but they're given to her as a character instead. I think it's really interesting.
And you were saying as well, again, going back to Miss Torso, I think her character alone has a lot to say. All the little kind of neighbours and stuff have a lot to say.
We've got like the young couple, haven't we, as well? And
the honeymooning couple maybe having marital issues already and things. Like we said, it's all kind of links into the main characters and their issues, their personal issues. But that night where she brings all the men home, and Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly are watching them, and she's like, well, she's doing what all women do, and is dealing with the wolves, is trying to save herself from the wolves, and she has to pick one to kind of let the other ones. She has to go, okay, well, I like him, so everyone will leave me alone now. But like Grace Kelly's like, she doesn't love him. She's just doing it because that's the way to survive, which is quite sad and quite tragic. But and again, like very kind of ahead of its time. It was quite interesting. Grace Kelly obviously is. I think she's really fascinating, her character, because obviously she comes like there's quite a good line where like Jimmy Stewart's like, well, she goes to all these fancy to do dinners and all this sort of stuff, and then she comes in and like she talks about the scandals, she talks about the fancy dinners, she talks about the clothes, all the stuff he's already mentioned, because it's like we're not compatible, it wouldn't work. I go out and I do this guerrilla style photography, and she's like not used to that. But all the way through it, she's like, why can't I change? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do this? Who says I can't do this? Who says I can't give that a try? I want to do these things. I love you. I care for you, and I want to follow you and do this stuff because of that. Because I'm interested. I can change my life not for you. But I will take these chances. And again, that feeds into what the women within the apartment go and do later, putting themselves in direct danger. And the tension is
that scene's brilliant. Yeah,
palpable. And Jimmy Stewart,
he's completely powerless, isn't he? Yeah. Like she's in that apartment and he's coming back, and there's no way for her to get out, and there's nothing Jimmy Stewart can do. He just has to watch from that window. So it's where this flip of the voyeurism and the commentary of like, you had the power when you were first watching, but now you're still watching and you're powerless. It's a brilliant moment in the movie.
Oh, I love it. Weirdly, Thorwald, though we don't hear him really speak, though we don't, we don't get to know him that well. There is a lot to that character. There's a physicality, there's a menace, there's a presence. But again, you could easily play that off as just a grumpy neighbor. There's a lot of that stuff, and even when he comes into the apartment with Jimmy Stewart, again, another amazingly tense moment. He's like, "What do you want? I don't have any money. What do you want? I did what I had to do." And it's kind of, it's almost like there's a vulnerability to the villain, like that maybe the one in Disturbia, Mr. Turner in Disturbia, doesn't necessarily have. He's almost a little Michael Myers-y.
Agreed. It's much more of a clear, like, psychotic character.
Yeah, it's just, it's cut and dry performance. It's a good performance, but it's very like, it's A to B. But there's it's almost like, Hitchcock, I think, is quite sensitive with his villains. He tries to relate to them on some level and feel sorry for them on some level, that they've got into these situations, or, they've created this life for themselves. And again, we get very little, we know very little about him, but we get a sense of him, from these long shots, from, what we see. And again, it's like, it's incredible, really, to do obviously that kind of acting, that that naturalistic style, yet from such a distance it's almost, like we said, theatrical yet not at the same time.
It's very silent cinema influence, isn't it, in that way, and that acting and set design and framing, the mise en scène is what I'm talking about there, really is doing the heavy lifting of the storytelling. It's not really the dialogue in this instance, which is interesting to think of the era that it's in. 54, we're not a million miles away from, only 20 years past, 25 years past sound coming in, and he's sort of harkening back perhaps. And we know that's where Hitch started. He started back in the silent era, and he was over in Germany working on German expressions and movies. He had learned a lot of his craft out there as well. So it makes sense to see how influenced he is by that.
It's brilliant. I mean, again, it is a classic film, and there's not much we can really say that probably hasn't been said before about it. But I think we've said a fair amount. I think we've covered quite a bit.
Agreed. Yeah, I think the key things are already on there, like performances and how good they are, like the forward-thinkingness of kind of characters and their representations. And and the production design, absolutely.
It's mind-blowing. If you haven't seen Rear Window, if you haven't seen any of these films, I do recommend all of them.
Agreed.
And I don't say that on every Clone Wars. Some of them are like,
not the Ewoks, no?
Oh my God, maybe not the Ewoks, no. Certainly not the Ewoks. But yes, I think it might be time to move on. If you're comfortable, unless there's anything else you'd like to say or any other comments you want to make about the film in general.
I think we're there. I think, we could do an hour and a half just on that, I think, but we've got 2 more films to talk about.
We certainly do. So let's crack on with Brian De Palma's Body Double. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
Well, this is not a film I was aware of until you asked me to watch it. So I was very pleased to find something new to investigate. Obviously know of De Palma, know of his obsession with Hitch and of like these kind of mysterious thrillers. But this was one that wasn't on my radar at all. As you said, a combination really of Rear Window and Vertigo. So you were absolutely right to put those two together to watch, to see the inspiration here. And I think he would probably be quite happy to admit that that's totally true.
Oh, yeah. He absolutely wears his influences on his sleeve.
He does, doesn't he? Yeah. But here in this movie, we're playing with kind of meta-ness, aren't we? Because our main character is an actor. An actor, he's a bit of a jobbing actor. He's not had a break yet.
I can relate.
His current gig is in a low-budget vampire movie, it appears.
Vampire's Kiss?
Vampire's Kiss, I know. Yeah, that's a great little nod, isn't it? Yeah, it's not a nod. It becomes a nod later on.
Yes. I'm not a vampire.
In the process of filming, though, when he's within the coffin, he realizes that he suffers from claustrophobia, doesn't he? And loses his job and is a bit down on his luck. So an actor friend, in inverted commas, offers him the chance to stay in this really swish, swanky, futuristic space pod on stilts house.
Is it the Space Needle in Seattle?
I think it is, yeah.
It looks just like that. I think when I was researching it was called the Chemosphere or something.
Okay.
It looks like a spaceship. Looks like a.
It's cool, isn't it? Yeah.
Something out of Close Encounters.
Yeah, and then on the inside, it's like something Austin Powers would live in.
It does have the rotating bed.
It does have the rotating. That's all I could think of when the guy was like, "Yeah, the bed rotates," and I just had my eyes in my head. Yeah, absolutely. And then through being here, and his friend shows him a telescope, and he's like, "This is my favorite part of the day." He gets obsessed with a woman who ends her day very strangely doing a kind of yoga come erotic dance number, and he starts following her and becoming a bit of a stalker, and craziness ensues from there.
It certainly does. There's a lot of influences here, and again, absolutely wearing them on his sleeve. And I like De Palma. I really do like De Palma. If you've not seen Blowout with John Travolta, that is one of my all-time favorite films. It is an incredible watch, an incredible thriller. I think John Travolta, who is wobbly at best, I think, in a lot of his performances, he does vary between film to film. I think he's phenomenal in it as well. You've got Nancy Allen, John Lithgow. It's incredible. It's a wonderful, wonderful kind of surveillance thriller slasher.
Yeah, and another film that's not shy about its influences, considering the conversation. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, which I also love. But yeah, I love his work. I'm a fan of Scarface. I love the ridiculous excess 80s of it all. He owns a tiger. The music's great, whatever. I think he's an excellent filmmaker. But we've got like a lot of kind of slasher giallo, kind of the Italian kind of influence in there. I definitely got a Slumber Party Massacre vibe with the big drill.
That's not one that I've seen.
No, it's quite an interesting slasher franchise because every film is written and directed by a woman.
Okay, all right.
They've just released a new one recently, a remake. Same across the board, written and directed by a woman. I can't say the rest about the crew or what have you, but every single one is definitely so it's effectively a feminist slasher genre film franchise.
Note this down, sister. Note this down.
Write this down. Slumber Party Massacre. Must watch. I bet when you started listening to the podcast, you didn't think you'd see all these kind of weird and wacky films.
No, but that's why I love it.
But yeah, there's that. There's big Hitch influence. But again, I don't think he just rests on his laurels and goes, well, I can do that. That worked in another film, so I can just do that. He absolutely plays with it. He flips it. He turns it. He makes it his own. He adds tension in different ways. He adds suspense in different ways. You could easily just have made Vertigo and Rear Window and just gone slap them together, but he doesn't do that. There's a style, and like you said, there's a meta-ness, and there's kind of almost like a dream feel.
Yes,
especially towards the end, there's a dream-like aspect to it. There is in the middle of it, there's kind of a music video slash slash porno to Frankie Goes to Hollywood, which I was like, okay, Frankie Goes to Hollywood is suddenly fine. I like that song. Go for it. And he's, they're in the video, they're like hugging him and stuff, and then he becomes like a porno actor.
And it is literally like the whole song, isn't it? It's basically like a little MTV video within the movie.
Yeah, it's weird. I think it's a different version, different cut of the song, but it's I can't get enough of that song, so I'm always here for it. But yeah, it kind of just takes on this weird kind of. I think there is definitely obviously De Palma got a lot of criticism from Scarface and from I think Dressed to Kill and various things of his kind of. You could argue that some of these things could be viewed as misogynistic. The male gaze and various things, and the idea of kind of phallic implements and the blade or the knife or the drill, all this sort of stuff, and his sexualization of everything. But this kind of plays into the story in this particular film anyway. So again, you might argue that, but he believes that you wouldn't judge morally a still life painting. It's just art. You don't have to put any moral implications on it. And that's his opinion. I again don't necessarily agree. Don't really have an opinion on his opinion. But yeah, this was a big thing for him, and I think this is a little critique of Hollywood itself.
Agreed.
And the audience's reaction and the critics' reaction to his films previously, especially Scarface. Well, initially, the film, he wanted to make this film to have the first unsimulated sex scene in.
Yeah, I read that too. Yeah.
However, Columbia was owned by Coca-Cola at the time.
They weren't up for it?
No, funnily enough, that,
We're going to replace the Holidays Are Coming Christmas advert with... A body double is coming, no?
Coca-Cola like to teach the world to sing, not how to fuck.
Okay.
But yeah, apparently but it was dropped very early on because they were like,
Yeah.
absolutely not going to happen. But yeah, I think there is a lot of this. I related a lot to this because obviously struggling actor.
Yeah.
I've had relationships fall apart on me quite quickly as well. And Barbara Crampton makes a little cameo in this, Scream Queen Barbara Crampton, which is very nice. But yeah, it's quite interesting to see the development of the story and where it goes, and kind of all the pieces fit together. I'll be honest, there was the Native American character,
yes,
which is probably the most problematic thing in it for me.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen now, would it?
No, absolutely not. And it's quite grotesque as well. Initially, I didn't think he was a Native American. I just thought he was just an ugly guy.
Yeah, me too.
Just like a disfigured guy or something, like a Jaws or something like that, like a James Bond type villain. But then it is like, they use the term that is not Native American in the film, but we're going to use the term Native American to describe him. Yeah, that made me, the whole idea of that and what's revealed in the end made me uncomfortable, because the other stuff I'm quite used to. I'm quite a fan of horror and slasher giallo stuff. So this is all quite kind of standard for me. It's kind of stuff I've seen before, and again, not in a bad way, not done in a bad way. But I think they kind of mesh the two. I think they take the best parts of Vertigo and make it better. I will say that.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to watch one or the other, I would watch Body Double over Vertigo every day of the week. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack with this movie, isn't there? I think it's worth starting with that, with the twist and the Native American character, because I think we spoke about Rear Window, about the idea that there is no real twist and there's no real surprise, and the mystery is how rather than who. I don't know in this film if you're meant to know or not that it's what we're spoiling, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, spoilers. Go ahead.
So the friend that's a friend that set him up with the apartment is the one that's in disguise and this kind of like makeup, and it's been a whole like, I still don't really know why, this whole like ploy and plot to help him off his ex-wife or his wife. Very convoluted way to go about it. I mean, it was obvious from the very first shot when he's in the apartment that it was him.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because we've watched too many of these movies or what, I don't know. Maybe if you're watching it for the first time, you wouldn't get it. And then when he comes back as a Native American character, again, it was like, well, it's obviously him.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I felt the same way. I went, well, that's him. And I also go, because I'm always a bit suspect someone who's been a little bit too nice.
Quite, yeah.
So I'm like, he's been a little bit too nice. This is a bit too good. He's like, oh, by the way, here's this telescope that shows you a woman sexually dancing and then touching herself. Check out that. And again, like he's checking up with the calls and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, it's him. Like all the way through, I knew it was him. Like even the makeup is not that good that it would conceal the actor behind it. You know what I quite liked about some of it? Like in like slasher movies where the killer always kind of catches up to you.
Yes.
And you don't know how quick they are. In this, you get to kind of see the slasher villain like running down an escalator.
That's true. Yeah. You're giving it some to get there.
Yeah, and so you kind of subverting that, but that's almost kind of scarier as well, because he's absolutely like belting down, trying to follow this woman, and obviously this actor is now he's watched her, and now he's seen the Native American character watch her, so then he feels like he has to protect her because he fancies her, which I can't blame him really.
Very beautiful woman.
Very beautiful. I want to say Deborah Shelton, I think the actress's name was.
Sounds about right.
But yeah, so he then kind of follows you. There's a great sequence through the mall where, again, it's done better than Vertigo. The idea of
he's
that,
following it to the museum, and it's
just done so much better. The pacing's better. The camera is smoother. It moves around. You feel like much like Hitchcock did with Rear Window.
Yeah,
it's almost like a POV. You feel like the
Palmer's use of camera has always been excellent. So he took his framing, I think, from Hitchcock, but he pushed on what you could do with the camera compared to what Hitchcock was in his era. Yeah. Even in bad movies like Snake Eyes, that opening 20-minute sequence, which is got a couple of hidden cuts, but is an unbroken shot. The stuff he could do with the camera is fantastic. So yeah, I agree with you. Sorry to cut over you there.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. Like the way he moves the camera in that scene is brilliant, and that's where the real. So I think before we've been probably along. You and I have just done it. To be fair, we've been along with the character in his voyeuristic nature. But here's where we start to question it when he's perving over her in the changing room, and we see the reaction of kind of the shopkeeper.
Yeah, I think that again, that's kind of like in Rear Window where they're going, well, you probably shouldn't be doing that. Like,
yeah.
And then him keeping the underwear. She drops the underwear.
Yeah.
I always thought that was a bit weird, though, that she just drops it. She buys this expensive pair of underwear. She tries it on, buys it, and then just drops in the bin anyway.
I mean, trying on underwear for a start is odd. I don't want to buy a pair of pants that someone else has tried on.
Yeah, I don't think they have to.
Do we try on pants?
I mean, obviously they have, like nowadays they have a kind of a hygiene strip, I believe they call it, that covers up the affected area, let's call it. Yeah, it was just bizarre. Obviously, the security guard is useless as well.
He really
what
is.
the fuck? It was like,
what are you doing, mate?
Oh, don't worry about it. It's fine. He walks off.
He walks off. I know, it's amazing, isn't it?
Awful security guard. But then we kind of get.
The pants are only needed for Chekhov's pants later, aren't they?
Chekhov's pants
for the detective.
Yeah, true, and it does remind me of Vertigo, because there's that scene in Vertigo after the woman dies where they absolutely rail against Jimmy Stewart's character. They go really hard on him, like he's a bit useless, and he wasn't involved, but he probably cost that woman her life.
Yeah.
And he's a complete arsehole to him. And again, it's the cop in this as well. Definitely not so much in Disturbia. There is a little bit of something, but it's not quite the same. But I think one of my highlights of the film, obviously, they finally meet. He manages to get her purse back.
She gets mugged by the Native American.
Yeah, on the beach. Which De Palma wasn't a fan of that sequence going between all the little huts and stuff. He said it was poorly done, that part, and I thought it was fine. It's
a bit cliche, I suppose, in a way,
but there's better stuff in the film, I will say.
The apartment block looks amazing. The shot from that felt very kind of Rear Window, like design.
Oh, it was gorgeous. Yeah, and the long running windows, the clear windows. Again, we don't get to see any other kind of characters really. I think there's a little bit of kind of, he looks around a little bit, but nothing too much. But again, that's not the focus of the film. The focus is the woman, Mrs. Travell, something like that. So we see that they meet. Like, another thing that's good about this is in Vertigo, they don't really use his Vertigo. It's not as recurring a theme.
Not considering it's the name of the film, no.
Yeah, like it happens maybe 3 times in the film, really, in the original. I feel like we're just shitting on Vertigo now. It's not great. I'll
be honest. Yeah, it's a very average movie for me. Yeah. So when he catches it, he catches up, gets the
and he runs through the tunnel, and he's like, and he starts. And I like that in this film, it's more recurrent, the problem of claustrophobia, and it's really effective. The actor basically just kind of freezes and stuff. And starts like not being able to breathe. It's almost like, and we learn there's a kind of an acting psychology sesh early on where he's kind of like revealing that he kind of got stuck behind a fridge when he was playing hide and seek when he was a kid, and that's a big issue for him. But it's only really kind of started to affect him recently. But yeah, I really like that. But then we get this very bizarre. I will say I love the love theme for this film.
Yes, it's great. Yeah.
I think it's I want to say Pino Donaggio. I think the track is called Telescope.
Makes sense.
It's brilliant. It's so good. It reminds me a little bit of True Romance, so the music from that a little bit, like the steel drums.
I haven't put that together, but yeah, absolutely.
But he just kind of meets her, and then all of a sudden they just have this very melodramatic spinning kind of kiss that goes on for ages. And then basically almost
ages it goes on for.
It goes on for a bit too long. I thought what it was doing was it was going to do that, and then it was going to transition into like her bedroom or his bedroom. But no, it just keeps spinning around on the beach. And it's almost like he's tearing his shirt off, her boobs almost falling out. And and then later on, he's trying to call her, and he's like, "Hi, I got your number off your card, and you might remember I'm the guy who almost fucked you on the beach."
Yeah, she might remember that.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know how she'd respond to that phrasing of that, but but then my favorite sequence happens, the kind of the murder.
Yeah, it's great.
And it works so well. There's a lot of tension there. You've got the dog. He's like, no, he's behind you. He's going to kill you. And, he's got the telephone wire. He's plugged in the massive drill. Yeah. And then he walks closer to her and the plug comes out. It's really a really tense situation. And absolute biting tension. And it is a real kind of, it's a level up from, I'd say, Rear Window's kind of that same sort of sequence.
This is where you know that if you hadn't got it before this point, I mean, if you hadn't got it from the swirly camera, obviously that was completely ripping off Vertigo. But if you hadn't got it from that scene, the kind of the eking towards tongue-in-cheek nature of this movie and the commentary on filmmaking itself is what I got from a lot of it. Like that scene you're talking about is amazing. The oversized phallic nature of that drill and the sense of like the lead getting stuck and the plug coming out and him, like all of that is so over the top that it's clearly De Palma's fuck you to all his critics, 100%.
Oh, absolutely. It's a criticism on Hollywood, the making of movies, all the bullshit pretension and hoops you have to jump through. Like, I get it, and I related a lot to this, and I saw a lot of myself in the in Craig Wasson's character. I think he's great. Like, he makes he's an affable guy, he's a nice guy. But he's also kind of a blank slate as well. But you still like him, you still relate to him, even though he's doing some of these sleazy things. You can kind of go, well, I can see why, he's been put in that situation. Maybe he'd lean towards that and stuff. But I really like that. And I think that whole sequence and then him running, like grabbing the joggers.
That's great, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, come on, help me. And then he can't get in. And we realize later that the Native American had the key card and stole that from the handbag.
From the handbag, yeah.
And the dog attacks Craig Wasson's character. Yeah. And you're like, what's the dog doing there? He should be upstairs attacking the guy. What's he doing? And obviously by then I was like, oh yeah, because he's the guy. He's the
because it's his dog. Yeah,
he's the husband. So the dog's not going to attack him. He's going to attack the intruder, and that's him. And then you get that wonderful like shot of the drill coming through the floor.
Yeah.
And again, Brian De Palma said, I had to have a weapon that could be seen from very far away. So it had to be an overly ridiculously large phallic drill, because he's miles and miles away. You wouldn't see like a knife or a blade or something like that. Or I did think when they there is a lot of like tongue-in-cheekness about it. Like you said, there's a lot of kind of...
I think so, yeah.
There's satire, there's a lot of jokes, there's a lot of humor to it, more so than Rear Window, which, though has humor, can be a little bit stuffy at times. My favorite character in the whole film has to be Melanie Griffith's Holly Body. What a performance.
And that is, the title of the film really, tells you what's going to happen. To be honest. So maybe that's why we both knew that the villain was that guy. But of course, there's a second body double, which definitely completely got me. And yeah, she's fascinating when she comes into it. It's one of those times when an actor has a smaller part, but has the biggest impact. 100%. You can see, and I think she talked about the fact that she would not have got Working Girl without this movie, but she is electric on the screen. Yeah,
absolutely. She's sensual. She's sexy. She's got agency. She's got power. She's got charisma. And she's hilarious. Like all of the lines, I got a lot of Temple of Doom vibes from her character. It's like, like screaming at stuff, going, "What's going on? Why are you doing this, Indy?" That type of thing. From Kate Capshaw in Temple of Doom, like her character. And I loved it. And I'll be honest, I could have done with kind of more, like her introduction maybe a little bit earlier or a bit more of it, because it is kind of a film of two halves a little bit, much like
2/3 of the way through, I'd almost say, actually, is when she comes into it.
Yeah, and I guess it kind of is that because it is Vertigo and it is a Rear Window, so it does feel somewhat, but that's afterwards. But that kind of happens in Vertigo as well. It's the kind of like you go through a depression, start seeing her everywhere, and then it meets the person who impersonated her and leads further into the mystery, tries to figure out the mystery through knowing that person, getting to know that person. I love the going into the world of the pornography as well, like him as an actor delving into that kind of seedier side. Yeah. It's really interesting.
It's a fascinating scene, isn't it? He goes through the audition, and again, that idea of you were talking about how like the commentary on what it is to be like a jobbing actor and an interview process and all that kind of idea. You get through this scene. We know a lot of people are asked to do things that they shouldn't have been asked to do. All of that's come out a lot. So there's definitely a lot of commentary going on throughout this movie. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think it was like that. The secret, the language that Melanie Griffith uses in this film to describe the things she won't do in a porn film was probably pretty shocking even back then. Yeah.
She just had like a long list, doesn't she? Of like, these are the things that I'm not willing to. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And like that is, that's something like, oh my God, like even the character is shocked, like how because she says it so casually, because it's just her life. Yeah. This is just something she does. Or what, these things she's like, yeah, I won't do that. It's just part of that world, but he's kind of becoming part of it. And then again, we got that big weird music video porno thing going on. And there's a real amazing little cap off to that scene, because he goes in, he's playing this porn act. He's being a porn actor. He's
meant to be like the nervous guy. It's again like another meta commentary, isn't it? On like, he's a nervous guy in a scene playing a nervous guy in a scene. It's very clever.
And and his line is, "Oh, I like to watch."
That's right. Yeah,
you do.
Yeah,
you do. Then he has sex. He has sex with Holly Body on camera, which he's a braver man than me. I'll put it that way. And then Rob Paulson, I don't know if you know him. He's a voice actor. No. He was Raphael in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
And he was also Yakko in the Animaniacs. And his line after that, because they climax, they finish having sex, and he just goes, "Where's the cum shot?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Where's the cum shot? We need a cum shot." And obviously, he's not a trained porn actor. He's just kind of And then I love him when he comes in and he's pretending to be this big guy with slick back hair and this. This kind of leather jacket and stuff. And he's like, "Yeah, I want to put you in my movie. Yeah, let's do this." And then eventually he's like, "No. Unfortunately, I've used you, but I need to know if you were there and if this guy hired you to resolve the mystery."
I think that scene when he comes in with his hair all slicked back and stuff shows, because I think you could watch this thinking Craig Wasson isn't a great actor. I mean, he's not gone on to really do anything, has he, since? But I think that scene shows that he is a good actor, and actually and it's that layer thing that's, I imagine, really hard to do. I've never been an actor myself, but like a good actor playing somebody who's not a very good actor. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean, but I'm trying to explain it. Like, Craig Wasson is the guy, and then he's playing this character, and that character is not a very good actor. That must be really hard to play
while playing another character. Yeah. So
because when you see him acting as somebody else, then it's a layered performance.
Absolutely. Like, and all credit to him. Like, he's a very plain looking guy, and I think that's the point. He's supposed to be. He's supposed to be he's the he's
the everyman, isn't he?
Yeah, it's your cipher. He's your way into this very, very bizarre world with these very bizarre visuals and this dreamlike nature. I was going to say that vampire outfit. It gave me a lot of kind of Buffy Spike vibes.
Yeah.
Did you see that with the bleach blonde hair and the kind of leather and everything?
Definitely.
I was like, yeah, very Spike. Before Spike. But another thing, I know, you're a fan of American Psycho, right? Ooh.
I am.
Ooh.
Until the end.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
But arguably, this film has a similar end, that the whole thing may not have occurred, which works a lot better here, I think, than it does in American Psycho.
Yes, I would agree. Yeah, the ending was always a bit wobbly for me as well, for that. But I do on the whole. But I was going to say, Bret Easton Ellis's novel, Patrick Bateman rents this movie like 25 times. This is like one of his favorite movies. I don't think it's referenced in the film.
I don't remember. I mean, I've not read the novel. I don't remember mentioning the film, no, because I think otherwise I would have heard of this and probably would have gone and watched it.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm sure you listened to Huey Lewis and the News.
Of course,
straight after that film. And Genesis, I'm sure.
Dancing around with a Mac on and, axe killing somebody, yeah.
Of course. I mean, why wouldn't you? Very relatable. Like you said, it's very similar. He manages to so Holly Body gets captured by the Native American, or Sam, I think he's called as well, or Mr. Travell or Trammell, whatever name you want to use. She gets captured, she gets taken. Craig Wasson's character sees this, goes for him, goes to try and save her. Every obstacle you can think of, police, more claustrophobia, and then while he's getting beaten up. We get the reveal that it is not a Native American. It is actually Sam underneath all this.
Yeah.
The fellow jobbing actor. And then he falls into the grave and starts feeling that claustrophobic feeling. And again, every time that comes into play, I'm always like, oh, great.
Yeah, sure.
That kind of effect. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm feeling this now. And he's like, even at the start of the film, when you see that, it's quite horrifying. His visage is like, his whole face is like, what is wrong with him? Like, something is really, really wrong with him. And obviously they pull him out of the coffin and stuff. Mm-hmm. But then in this sequence, it kind of, again, we get this kind of, like, it's almost like the top of the grave's getting further and further away as he falls into the abyss of the claustrophobia.
Very train spotting in that scene when Renton's overdosing.
Yeah, I didn't think of that, actually. Yeah, it is very similar. And then he wakes up and he's in the coffin at the studio, and he's, and it's almost like, was this a dream? Is this still going on? Did this happen? But he's not in the costume he was in. He's in what he was wearing in the coffin, in the grave.
Right, yeah.
Sorry, in the grave while he's being, feeling claustrophobic. In the coffin on the set, he's there in the outfit that he is in real life, supposedly in real life. That's hard to explain.
Yeah. So it's like he's been transported, like him and that man has been transported, if you like, back in time or to,
And then it's that during that therapy scene, it's like, you must act. You're not trapped. You're not dead. You're not this dead bug or whatever it was. You must act. And then I think he kind of relates that back to being an actor. And he's like, oh, well, you're going to fire me. He was like, no, I won't fire you. And I think it's the guy from NYPD Blue, isn't it? That kind of loudmouth cop.
It is, yeah. I was thinking from Die Hard 2 as well.
Die Hard 2, yeah. And he's in Psycho 2, actually, as well. Who's, again, playing another loudmouth. He's good. He's good at the loudmouths.
Yeah, sure.
He's a loudmouth in this, loudmouth director. And... and he's like, no, I won't fire you. I promise. And even he's like, oh my God, that was relatable as well. When his agent was like, oh, you've been replaced by another actor. and he's like, who is he? He was like, how do you know I've been replaced? He was like, well, the other actor's on my books.
Right, yeah.
I've had very similar experiences with agents, so it's very lifelike. So I found this very relatable. And then he's like, he starts being this very aggressive and like he starts like kind of psyching himself up, and he's like, no, we're going to do the scene again. Get me back in that coffin. I'm going to get it right this time. He's like, you better not fuck it up. And then he transitions back into real life and climbs out of the grave and knocks Sam and the dog into the river.
Another dead dog.
It's just dead dogs all over. Let's hope Disturbia doesn't have any dead dogs. Not only that, then it kind of ends with, like, again, another kind of panning away, kind of drawing away. Like Hollybody's like, don't murder me. You're a weirdo. You're a voyeur. You're a peeping Tom. You're a killer. You're going to murder me. And then he's back on the set in the vampire film during the credits. And there's a scene where they get in a body double, and that was quite interesting. Where she's like, oh, my breasts are really tender today. I'm on my period.
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff. I was like, oh, this is really weird.
Yeah,
but I quite like it as well. It's kind of a bizarre kind of transition, and then we see Holly Bodies on the set, implying that they're maybe in a relationship or friends, or that he's gotten her out of pornography and into like real acting or something. Because he does genuinely say she's a good actor. Like he goes, your acting is great. Like, you don't need to do this.
Yeah. You can be.
But he also doesn't shame her. So he doesn't shame her going, it's a bad thing. This is a sinful thing. It's a career. But he was like, you could do actual acting as well if you want to. And that was another thing with this film, is they hired a lot of adult film stars to play adult film stars.
I mean, I think you've done a great job of trying to explain that, because that is a really convoluted, complicated thing to try and get across. And when I was watching it, it made me think of Jim Jarmusch's The Dead Don't Die, his zombie movie, which has the scene in the car right at the end where they kind of break the fourth wall, and it's like, well, we're in a movie and this is what's going to happen later, and we're not going to survive. And it really doesn't work in that film. It's horrible. It really jarred me out of it, and really, I don't know if you've seen that.
I've not seen it, but I have heard very mixed things about it.
It's okay up until that point, but then there's just this moment that I've just ruined for you and everybody else that hasn't watched it, where they start talking about, well, we're in this movie and he's decided this is what's going to happen in the script. So in 2 minutes, you're going to get killed by all these zombies. But again, here, something about it just works. It's just because I think it's already told you before, earlier in the movie, that this may be like a whole entire kind of a dream or in the imagination of the character. And as you said, it has that kind of like dreamy, nightmarish feel to it anyway. But also, De Palma's made it very clear to anyone that's paying attention that it is this meta commentary on making films and working in this industry. That when he starts cutting backwards and forwards, you're seeing him talking about the artistry and
maybe even the editing process or something.
Agreed. Yeah. Or screen testing and people making decisions that are nothing to do with the original art and the idea. So I think something about it just works here because it's meant to be asking, it's meant to be challenging you and how you view films and your understanding of how they make films, rather than it just trying to be clever. It's not meant to be like a clever wink, wink, or smart moment. It's meant to be like, have a think about what you've watched and have a think about the process of filmmaking and voyeurism. Before
you criticize or critique or say, oh, it's too violent or it's misogynistic or whatever your opinions are on it. Like Roger Ebert actually loved this film, but a lot of critics hated it. But it's almost...
I can understand.
I can get why you wouldn't be into this. Like, I totally can. It's not going to be everybody's bag. Like, end of the day,
no.
And those arguments could be made. Like, don't get me wrong.
I think somebody could sit here and talk for as long as we have, absolutely ripping on it, and I might agree with some of what they're saying.
Absolutely, and that would be a good conversation to have, and learning experience for everybody. But I think what you were saying is it's almost like we're being voyeuristic. Like everyone wants to see behind the curtain. Everyone wants to know what goes on behind the scenes. So it's almost like we're being voyeurs on the filmmaking and behind the scenes and how films get made in this very, again, bizarre meta commentary, film. It's all kind of a big melting pot, but it does work. It does really work.
It does.
And it's stylish as well. It's slick. It's like the sound is great. The music is great. Again, I think they called it a sex Spencer.
Yeah.
Like not a suspenser, but a sex Spencer, because it was all kind of very erotic and stuff. But yeah, speaking of Slumber Party Massacre, one of the stars of Slumber Party Massacre is in fact in the film.
Oh, okay. Which character is that?
Brink Stevens. She plays one of the kind of background characters in the kind of porno music Frankie Goes to Hollywood scene.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, get on YouTube and just watch that scene, I would say, just to get a flavour of what you can expect. And if you can get on board with that scene, I think you could get on board with the rest of the movie.
I think so. If you're open to that kind of ridiculousness and over the top and, sleazy 80s brilliance, if you will.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And you're thinking about the era that it's coming in, because what was this, 84, 86? So...
Yeah, 84, I think.
And knowing, as you said, right at the top of this, what De Palma had just done himself in terms of his films, you should know what you're letting yourself in for, really.
Absolutely. There's a couple of things I want to mention before we carry on.
Yeah.
Because we've still got another film to go over before we compare. Like with Sharon Stone's character in Basic Instinct, a lot of actresses would turn the kind of roles down based on nudity or based on things they were supposed to do, which is fair enough. If you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. So Tatum O'Neal, Jamie Lee Curtis, Carrie Fisher all auditioned for the role of Holly, but turned it down. Brooke Shields was offered the role, but turned it down to study French literature at Princeton. Okay,
well, that's a different type. I could definitely see Jamie Lee Curtis in the role.
Oh, yeah.
She would have been great.
I mean, you only have to watch True Lies.
Yeah, that's exactly what was in my mind,
Yeah, and just see that. Sexy dancing.
The others I'm not so convinced about, but I think the right person got the role anyway, but Jamie Lee Curtis would have done something good with it.
Yeah. Speaking of James Cameron, Linda Hamilton was also in the running, but she chose to do Terminator instead.
Good.
Which I think was a good choice.
Yes, agreed.
And one more thing. The original trailer, which I'm going to use as the intro to this podcast.
Oh, nice.
You've already heard it. Won a Clio Award, which is a marketing or advertising award.
I will have a check of that when we finished.
I'll send you the link. I'll send it over.
Please do.
It's quite good. It's quite classy. It's almost like it's like a perfume ad.
Oh, love it. Okay, all right. So again, De Palma playing with preconceptions and how to advertise, and lovely.
That was Body Double. Again, I recommend all these films. Go and watch them. Make your own decision. Let us know. I'm always interested to see what people's opinions are.
Definitely.
But
the only thing I read that I don't think we've covered that's really interesting is that De Palma's, the scene you're talking about when Craig Wasson's character's stuck behind a fridge, that happened to De Palma.
Did it?
That when he was a child, he was playing hide and seek with his two older brothers, and he got stuck behind a fridge, and that's where the idea came from for the character and the claustrophobia.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So,
no.
Whether that's one of those bit of trivia that is,
it's not one I've managed to pull out of my arse.
I definitely read that somewhere.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. But yeah, we could talk again days and days and days about Body Double, days and days and days about Rear Window. But now we've got to talk about Disturbia.
Let's move on. You can't help it, can you? Actually,
no, absolutely not. So again, this was you brought this to the table. I brought Body Double to the table. So tell us a little bit about Disturbia.
Disturbia, I think I mentioned it right at the start. Kind of an unofficial remake, I would say, of Rear Window. In this case,
so much so it got sued for being a
rip-off. Did it? I didn't know that. Okay.
It was dismissed out of court. They were like, no, it doesn't hold up because there's a lot of subplots, there's a lot of other stuff going on. There's a lot more technology involved, different characters, different ideas. But it's, like you said, an unofficial remake.
The skeleton is definitely there, isn't it? We have a young man played by Sheila Buff who is in a tragic car accident and his dad is killed and subsequently becomes a bit of a troubled teen, punches his teacher in the face. Teacher has been a bit of a dick, if I'm honest. Being a teacher myself, that wasn't the right way to handle that situation in the classroom. Not that he deserves to get punched either, but, clearly this kid needs a bit of a break. And because of that, gets put under house arrest. So from there, the story goes in the place we'd expect. He's completely bored. His mum cuts him off from kind of his iTunes and his computer games, and he has TV, which he gets bored of quickly. So he starts watching what's going on in the neighborhood around him to the point where he can, to the minute, know what's going to happen with his neighbors, which is a really cool scene, actually. And then he comes to suspect that his next door neighbor is a serial killer. So he rapes his best friend and the new sexy hot young thing that's moved in next door to help him out in his investigations.
Yeah, again, kind of what we've talked about already, but kind of just a modernized version of it. And you said at the top as well that old Shia LaBeouf's had a rough go at it. The last few years, he's had some troubling stuff and problems, and what he wants to do with his career, and interesting choices in regards to film
treatment stuff came out, didn't it, as well? About how
did it?
Yeah, just being a bit of a. I'm underplaying it. I don't know why I'm underplaying it. I think his partner, which was an actress that was in Honey Boy with him, I think.
Right.
They got together and came out saying that he was a bit of an arse. He was an asshole to me. He was
abusive,
gaslighting me, and a bit abusive. Yeah.
Very, very troubled young man.
Yes.
One way or another.
I think it's another case of child actor that has some deep-seated psychological issues because of not being allowed to grow up, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, again, it's a lot of pressure, a lot of work for even a child or an adult, even or teenagers as well. But I've always kind of like those early kind of films.
Yeah,
I do kind of relate to him. I can see that kind of sardonic, sarcastic wit. There's a humor to it. I think he was allowed to improvise a lot on this film as well. I think he was given a bit of license, so there is a bit of that. I think a lot of the opening scenes with the dad were almost purely improvised, I believe.
I think he's a very talented individual. We're not going to excuse anything that he's done that is wrong, but I think looking at him as an artist in terms of as an actor and as a filmmaker now, he's a very talented person, I think.
I think you said it in your review recently on your WordPress, how this could be considered a lesser film because of his influence, because of maybe Shia LaBeouf's involvement, because there's some people that really don't gel with him or his acting style or who he is, or like you said, things he may or may not have done. But I really enjoyed this. I think it's a kind of a slick thriller. Again, the kind of surveillance element. I like the more kind of electronic nature of it, and the kind of the evolution of the Rear Window kind of framework. And again, it kind of some really disturbing stuff in it as well, like seeing the body when you see the bodies. It's not really spoilers, but when you see the bodies in the end, it's really quite dark. It's almost like they almost look like they've been in the ring or something. They're all like,
it does. Yeah. This is another one that becomes like a slasher towards the end. I think I'd say the last kind of 20 minutes or so is basically a slasher movie. Yeah.
Again, maybe a little nod to Hitchcock as well with Psycho and stuff. And maybe on the previous on Body Double as well, there's a bit of that.
Yeah.
And I think there might even be a little Dial M for Murder in Body Double as well, maybe. Somewhere.
Yeah, sure. That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard that, but I've not seen Dial M for Murder, so I'm not 100% sure. So don't take me at my word. But I think it's the most relatable of the films.
Yeah.
I think it's the most grounded. It's the most real.
Yeah,
it's very believable. It's very
all of this could actually happen.
Absolutely, and it's not played in a like we said, we talked about this heightened reality in the previous two films and this kind of theatricality as well. But this is just like playing it straight, honest. Good. It was quite a hit as well. It was very popular, this film.
Yeah. It was like really, it came out like pre-summer, didn't it? And was it like number one for 3 weeks? Made about 80 million or something off a small budget. Yeah.
Tiny budget, but I get it. I absolutely get it. It was fun. It gripped me from beginning to end. I didn't know about the dad's death. So that it was almost like I put in the wrong film initially. I was like,
sure,
because it's quite nice. It's quite like it's quite soft and
fly fishing idyllic.
Yeah, I love your dad. All that sort of stuff. Yeah, and then it just drops the bomb on you, and it's again quite a devastating scene. And it doesn't. The director didn't want to show the dad's body. They just wanted to show Shia LaBeouf's reaction.
Yeah, and that's where you see him as an actor. Absolutely fantastic, that moment. It's very similar, isn't it, in that way, as in terms of like a hard, cold opening to The Descent. That has a very similar opening, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's kind of
with that psychological impact later on due to this kind of terrible accident that characters then blame themselves for subsequently.
Yeah, it's devastating. I talked about Midsummer recently and how devastating the opening scene in that is. Again, it has a lot to do with the film and nothing as well at the same time. I'm still very conflicted about how I feel about that film. I definitely need to sit down and watch it again. I've talked about it over Grimfest as well. But
that's an investment watching that film more than once.
I know. I might even do the extended one, which is like 4 hours or something, just to kind of go, finally, do I like this or not?
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, and it's got a great cast as well. You've got Carrie-Anne Moss is there as the mum, who is great. It's not a big role, but she plays
underwritten and underutilized, but she does what she does well.
Yeah, she plays. I think she plays kind of stern mother figures quite well, or stern kind of. Especially in like Jessica Jones and the Netflix Marvel stuff. She plays that kind of stern, slightly cold, yet warm.
She was in Humans, that was on Channel 4 as well, playing like a scientist rather than a mother, but like a scientist doing a similar mold. Very good in that too, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've been meaning to get around to Humans. I hear amazing things about it as well.
I love it, yeah. I thought it was great. David Morse is their next door neighbour, isn't he?
He is. I do like David Morse. He pops up in a lot. Like before, he's always that guy.
He is, and you're like, oh, good, he's in this. Absolutely, yeah.
Like 12 Monkeys, and there's a million. Yeah, The Rock. Yeah, shit. Yeah, there's a million films we could name with him in, and you're like, oh yeah, that guy, the kind of white grey hair. Yeah, that guy, the tough one. Yeah. And he's apparently he was quite method on this film as well. Like
that would be scary.
He did not spend any time with the actors, did not talk to the actors. Apparently, he also Shia LaBeouf also broke his fingers, like mangled his fingers in a take.
Oh, okay.
And he just said, let's carry on.
All right, yeah.
So he really took this part seriously. Again, I think it is like, it's a bit one note, I'll be honest. Like I'm not complaining about his performance, but I think there's not much. It's like he's an intimidating guy. Even though he's like with Thorwall in Rear Window, I think there's a little bit of sensitivity there. And this is like, I'm going to murder you. I'll make you feel very, very. I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to make you feel very, 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 very uncomfortable. Like I might hurt you, but then I might kill you. He's talking to the mum or flirting with the mum a bit.
That's the only scene, isn't it, where he tries to put a bit of charm on for her. But I agree with you.
Yeah, it didn't really work for me, that particular section. I think when he's being intimidating, it's good, but again, there's no softness, or you're always aware that he's the murderer. Again, like you said, it's a how he's done it, not a who done it. And again, there's all this kind of doubting and stuff. What do you think of the two kind of side characters in this? So you've got Ronnie and what did you describe her as, the hot totty next door or something?
Yeah, the new hot young next door neighbour. Yeah, Ronnie is just your standard stock kind of best mate, isn't he? Which you get in a lot of these movies. However, I think her performance.
Sarah Roma plays.
Sarah Roma, I think there's a reason why I can't remember her name, because she hasn't really gone on to do much else.
No.
But I think she really elevates what is another stock character.
Paper thin.
Yeah. Who is really there to be shown from Michael Bay angles. I think her performance really elevates it, and I think at times she is up at almost a co-lead with Shia LaBeouf's main character until they decide to completely write her out the movie in the last 20 minutes.
Yeah. Where does she go?
He sends her off to call the police, doesn't he? You go and get the police and I'll deal with this. And then she's just gone. I think it's a real loss. I think her coming back we could have done that, and then her coming back into the house right at the end and having a role to play in defeating him, or...
Yeah.
Because her presence is missed when she's gone, which I think says something about what she'd managed to do with this paper thin character before.
But the whole one of the things I really like is the tag the tag. I think that's utilised.
Yeah,
the house arrest tag is really utilised quite well. I like when he sets the barrier and the border, so he knows when and where not to go out. I like the visits, the constant kind of visits when he steps out of lines, like you better not do this, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, which is the police officer, which is the cousin of the teacher he punched.
Yeah.
So that clever little element there, don't we?
So he's slightly a bit more harsher when he, like, literally they point a gun at him, like when he's just stepped out of his house. They're like, get on the ground. I was like, that's a bit much, I think, for a house arrest teenager. Like, if he had a gun or a knife, maybe I'd be like, yeah, point a gun. But you can take, it's a skinny Shia LaBeouf. You can take him. Like two grown cops, buff cops could take it. But I love the use of it because, and again, like, you don't need to go and call the police, because the idea of the tag is it's going to set off when he goes out the parameters anyway, and the police are going to come.
Yeah.
So what's the point of going off to call the police? Yeah, absolutely written out. And then Carrie Ann Moss basically does nothing for the last
She's
half.
damsel in distress, isn't she? Yeah.
How weird that we've talked about Rear Window, 1954, and how progressive that was.
Yeah.
And 2007, is it?
I think, yeah.
And how the opposite, it's almost like it's a complete shift, and it's kind of almost scary that that's the way filmmaking has gone, or the messages have gone. It's so backwards to me. I don't know why. And
when you think about, the stuff we've spoken about with Body Double as well, we're talking about the porn industry, and we've got him watching through a telescope and watching this kind of, sexy striptease dance. And there is objectification in that, absolutely. But that then gets challenged and questioned, and later on in the movie. Whereas here it's not. It's like, whoa, she's fit. Or look at her in a bikini. And then because they take her out of the movie, I kind of understand it. This is a teen movie, so that we're going to get teen boys interested. And I'm not saying it's okay, but I'm saying I understand the motivation behind having an attractive young woman in a movie. But if you give her a character, that kind of helps to assuage any worries of the objectification.
But she also again, she doesn't really challenge it herself. She almost is like, I quite like when you watch, or kind of.
Yeah, which again, I think is okay, because, ownership of your own body.
Sure.
In a way, I think that helps to answer the scene when he's watching her in the bedroom, she's doing the yoga, and I think that helps to answer that. I think that's okay. The swimming pool stuff, less so. But I think the fact that she's engaging him in that, I think it is all right. I mean, I spoke on the Buffy episode, on the Angel episode with Tony recently about, Charisma Carpenter going on to be in Playboy, and like, great, that's ownership of her body, that's fine, and that feels like what this character's doing at that point until you write her out, and then it becomes problematic again.
Yeah, there is a line where he said, he's been watching her and paying attention, but then he says all the kind of little things she does. Like, it's not like, oh, you got a great pair of tits, love.
Yeah, sure.
It's like, you look in the mirror, you're not quite sure of yourself. You're not sure of, you live in an abusive, you've got a difficult family environment. He sees all that stuff. And then she's like, it's kind of creepy, but kind of sweet in a weird way. I
think that's well delivered, that line. I think it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. And he's earnest, his earnestness kind of plays through and stuff.
Yeah.
But then he's also a little bit possessive, and when she's having a party, and he's like, you're a conformist. You're conforming.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, shut up, you dick.
Yeah.
Just let her have. She's allowed to have a party. You can't go.
Of course.
Because you punched your teacher. It's your own bloody fault. Not that the teacher was particularly nice anyway, or saying very nice things, but still, you still did that. As much as we all wanted to punch our teachers, at least one teacher. Have any of your students ever wanted to punch you, Jack?
Not to my knowledge, but what they're saying behind my back, who knows?
Yeah. Oh, punch him. I doubt it. I'm sure all your students love you very much.
Depends on the day, maybe.
Yeah, maybe depends on the grade as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's meant to be likable. Again, they do challenge the voyeurism and stuff, and they do question it, and they do not as much as the other films. I think there is a bit more of a leeriness, and there's a bit more like.
I agree. It is a bit retrograde compared to films which are 30, 50 years before. I completely agree with that statement. Yeah. And I think, this does come out in the same year as Michael Bay's Transformers. So I think you don't have to look too hard to see why. Like, as you said, it's kind of an era of filmmaking where this is acceptable.
Spielberg produced this as well. So I imagine kind of just moved him across. And then he was in Indiana Jones, wasn't he, after that? So
yeah.
maybe we'll blame Spielberg. It's your fault, Spielberg. You did this.
I'm not sure Spielberg and Michael Bay's leeriness have ever been said together in the same sentence, but you've just done it. I love it.
Spielberg ruins cinema. He likes leering at girls. Kidding. I'm not saying that Spielberg did all this, but yeah, there is that element. And I think, like we said, I think the female characters, unfortunately, unlike Rear Window, paper thin, disposable, unfortunately. Ronnie, I found very fucking annoying.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I'll be honest, I found him really irritating. It was nice that he had it was good to see a non-white friend. I think that was a good thing. It was great to see kind of a bit more inclusivity and stuff. But they didn't have to make him that fucking annoying. It's just a kind of they're always a bit pervier, the friends, aren't they? They're always a bit.
That's true.
Much. Yeah. They're the comedy relief. But the worst thing for me is when he pretends to be dead.
Yeah. It's a weird moment, that, isn't it?
It's not funny. It's an arsehole move. Literally called the cops. Literally, he's going to go to jail. There is a potential murderer in that house that you've been in. You've left your phone in there. You could get caught. You could be murdered, if not injured, or this is America. They could shoot him dead.
Yeah.
Just for being in his house. I just thought, what an arsehole. I was just like, he's not very likable. And I just found him a bit irritating. I did find not all the way through, but I'd say 75% of the way through, he was a little bit much, I felt.
I think that's fair to say. Do you think this is poor writing, or do you think there's any intention to help? He's like an exaggerated version of perhaps what Sheila Burst's character could be. Do you think there was any tension there, or do you think it's by accident?
Maybe it was to make him look less creepy or pervier via the voyeurism. But also we've got the technology aspect of this film is interesting, because we've got binoculars, telescopes, like the previous films, but we've also got cameras. Recording
CCTV and surveillance,
editing, you're under proper surveillance. You've got, audio. He's bored with the TV and stuff, but he's still allowed all his computer and tech and all that. He's a little Andrew Garfield in The Amazing Spider-Man, building all this wacky stuff. But I quite enjoyed that, and I think it was a good evolution of that initial idea. Adds a little bit more to it.
There's a good little MacGyver A-Team type scene, isn't there, when he's got his different bits of tech that he's soldering together, and he makes some cool little camera device. But I thought that was played off nicely in terms of it's kind of the tech savvy youth versus the kind of analog middle age, isn't it? I think there was a kind of little commentary there that was definitely quite interesting.
And having the classic car as well, and he works on the car, improves the car.
And he has a line, doesn't he, which is I like to be private, I don't like to be seen and watched, which we're entering a world where you can't escape that, mate, I'm afraid. Absolutely. So that's how we could get away with it before, but now he's not evolved with the time.
If there's any movie that's probably worth a remake now, it probably is Disturbia out of the three, because it's so technologically kind of advanced. I will say as well, the opening kind of sequence where he's bored out of his mind through COVID has only become more relatable.
Yeah, fair enough.
I was I'm going to start gluing Twinkies together and making a tower. And Shia LaBeouf did the research. He spoke to people that were under house arrest and what they did and how they dealt with it, and what they did with the time, what they learned and things. So it really was quite fascinating in that, and again, you can see there is quite key specific details and differences between the previous films and this to make it so unique itself and so enjoyable. What rating was this? Was a 15, or I don't know?
Feels like it would be a 12 to me.
12, PG-13, 12A sort of thing.
Yeah. I don't know, but it feels like it would be.
Because it does, like we said, it does have those slashery vibes. And
15. You're right.
15. Yeah, I think it was probably the dead bodies.
Yeah, the last sequence, I would say. Yeah.
I think that'll do it. And maybe some of the leeriness, maybe some of the the teenage leeriness stuff.
Yeah, because there's no there's teenage lust, but there's no sex. It's not really any bad language that I can think of.
No, not really. Not off the top of my head. Is there anything else you want to say about Disturbia before we go into our final decision making?
No, I think we've hit it. I think it makes sense that it's the one we've got the least say. because it is the most mainstream kind of commercial of, that's weird to say because Hitch was very commercial, but it is that kind of like modern commerciality about it. So I think,
and it worked. That modern commerciality did work for them.
Yeah.
So they did the right things. They got the result they wanted.
It doesn't quite have the same level of artistry as the other two.
No, I don't think so. But you've actually suggested maybe another Hitchcockian, and is it DJ Caruso? BJ Caruso?
Yeah.
So you've suggested maybe another Clone Wars in the future that we could do, which was
love to.
North by Northwest and Eagle Eye.
Eagle Eye, yeah. And arguably Enemy of the State, I think, the Will Smith one. But
yeah, maybe
if we can cope with 3, but
maybe I might have I might have another one for Enemy of the State.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So but
that's a little underrated little movie that is as well.
Yeah, you know what? I've never seen it in full. That one. I've never seen it in full, but I've heard very, very good things. But yes, so this is it. We're here to compare. So as normal, we have our 5 categories. Jack has forgotten them, so I will remind him.
That's supposed to be a secret.
You said it out loud, I'm sure. Maybe you said it before, but I'll remind you. Andy forgets them every time, every way.
Well, I'm in good company then.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's my job to remember this. I'll just tell you them. You make the decision. Okay, so like I said, we've got tiebreakers if we need them.
Yeah.
But we'll start with writing. So which film, Rear Window, Body Double, or Disturbia, has the best writing?
I think because of the layers, got to go Body Double. Rear Window has the template and has the as we said, like the laser precision of what it wants to do. Disturbia has the clever, like the tech savvy modern update, but Body Double has so much about it that it takes a real skilled writer and then ultimately director to turn that into a cohesive, enjoyable movie that it is. So I would probably go Body Double.
Yeah, and I think it takes some skill to combine Vertigo with Rear Window. And also make it feel totally unique and original.
Yes, which Body Double 100% does, yeah.
Absolutely. And it gives it a unique feel, a unique atmosphere. And again, all the while giving us that meta commentary, making fun of stuff, taking parts of Hollywood, taking experiences like Brian De Palma's experience and things, just adding that. I have to agree with you. I have to totally agree with you. I think Rear Window is an A to B plot. It is a good A to B plot.
Yeah.
But it's pretty solid, pretty straightforward as a narrative. Disturbia is very similar, apart from the kind of technology and a few modernized kind of updates. I think I would have to go with Body Double as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Takes an early lead.
Boom, quick one that as well. Did have to discuss that for 10 minutes. That's good. Right. So the next one will be acting. So which one features the best acting?
That is a much tougher category, isn't it? Because I would argue here, despite extolling his virtues when we were discussing the film, in terms of the leads, Body Doubles is the least impressive lead. Craig Waskin compared to Sheila Buff, Jimmy Stewart. And then obviously you've got your criticisms of Ronnie, which I take completely on board with the character of Ronnie and the performance of that. I think here we're going to go Rear Window. Jimmy Stewart, obviously, Grace Kelly, obviously, but actually all the other smaller characters, whether they're speaking or just doing a performance or a mime, if you like, all complete convinced as real people rather than actors playing parts. So as good as Melanie Griffith is, as good as Sheila Buff is, I don't think they're as supported in their performances as everybody is in Rear Window.
It feels very much like everything that all the jigsaw pieces fit together. It's not. We talk about Shia LaBeouf and we talk about Melanie Griffith because they're standout performances.
Yes,
because they stand out from the crowd in those films. Not that necessarily the other performances are bad, but because those are so good, we will talk. But if we're talking a strong ensemble, and again, acting at a distance as well. Like your face, like obviously your eyes are very expressive, the windows to the soul, your face is very expressive. You can't really see that in most of these kind of side characters, and they are integral to the plot, and not necessarily so much with the other two, that these kind of, there is a little bit with Shia LaBeouf and like the kids watching porn and things, and he's playing around with that, and there's a bit of humor there, and but it's not as like, you know, he very briefly watches, because it's very fast paced. I will give that to Disturbia.
Yeah,
it does have a pace to it, and that's a good thing for it, I think. But I have to agree. I think again, the relationship, we talked about it kind of as well, the relationship between Grace Kelly and the chemistry. Again, just the creation of that world and creation of the set, and everyone's linked together, and like the actors basically lived in there as well. The power, you know, again, brings that realism to it and brings another level of something different, something unique. So yeah, I have to agree with you on that one as well.
Oh.
Great minds think alike. Let's find out what's next, though. Maybe this will be our divisiveness. Music.
Interesting.
So Disturbia, I'll be honest, I can't really remember the music for Disturbia.
It's poppy. You know, I can't think of a score, but it's got, you know, kind of,
yeah, it's got
Kings of Leon, and it's got that kind of.
It did have some Kings of Leon, didn't it? Yeah,
that kind of 2007 rock pop soundtrack, isn't it?
Yeah, whatever was popular at that time, play.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. We'll shove that in. Absolutely.
2007 playlist.
Yeah, agreed. Body Double had that amazing tune you're talking about. I agree. It's really catchy and sticks in your head and really stays with you. I don't know if I can say the same about Rear Window.
I guess we were talking earlier as well that most of the sounds from Rear Window, the music was diegetic, so it was the lived-in sense of it. So if you're talking that, I guess if we use it in that way, that it's more the sound and the atmosphere,
like
and
a soundscape rather than
Absolutely. So maybe we can, you know, but there are like things like, I think there's a Bing Crosby song in there, the piano player plays. I think that's some Morays in there, and a few of the kind of little ditties and stuff. But yeah, it's not real. And I think again that kind of makes it a bit more, kind of draws you in a bit more again because of that. But yeah, there's not really music, I would say. No. I am going to go with Body Double because. That music just I've been listening to it all week, and it's been in my head all week. You know, and it's a lovely little tune. Again, there's a lot of kind of more menacing, and you know, it feels more like it has a score as opposed to the other two films.
Yeah,
I think the main argument here is that Body Double has a score and the other two don't.
I think that's it. You know, I think if I was going to stick something on in the background, it might be Disturbia, to see what was on the soundtrack and what I missed and what I can't remember or not. The thing that elevates Body Double above the two is a purposefully designed score to support what's going on. Yeah, I completely agree there.
Yeah, and there is definitely like the themes where it is more threatening and where it is more tense, more suspenseful. It's there. I can't remember it because all I remember is that telescope.
And of course, Frankie Says Relax.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Totally forgot about that. Like, I mean, I don't need to talk about any other music in the film. Just that music video done. All right, so that's 2 to Body Double, 1 to Rear Window. Oh, let's see, cinematography. So, which film looked the best?
Considering what I already had in my mind, and then this information you give me tonight of this idea of like Hitchcock using the restrictions to help him put an audience into that, even more into that character. That's really quite inspirational and quite impressive. So I think that's got to go to Rear Window. Yeah,
I mean, Body Double is slicker, more stylish, more polished as a film. Disturbia is very kind of like steady cam, kind of, it's a bit shakier, it's a bit more frantic and frenetic, like, oh my God, someone's there and we're doing things. And
both matching what those films want to do. Agreed. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like he's holding the camera and he's shaking it and stuff. Like literally that is what the desired effect is, and it is effective in that film.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that the pure magistry, and like I said, even though you can tell it's a set, it's still very, very good that he can get that much out of a set and that realism, that world building, if you will, from what he did and how he did it. Hitchcock is a genius. Like you can't really argue with that. And
there's a reason why the next two films are talking about are in a line after him. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. When people have, when you steal from the best. That's what they say. So I think I have to agree with you there. I'm agreeing with my statement from earlier that you agreed with. So I'm basically just agreeing with myself. So I'll go with that.
Steal from the best, as you just said.
Steal from the best. Fair enough. Yeah, so that's 2 to Rear Window and 2 to Body Double. Am I right?
It is.
Ooh, it's close. And then Disturbia just right at the end.
Oh, poor Disturbia. Yeah.
No. So this is the final category.
We are going to have a winner.
We are going. Looks like we're going to have a winner.
Unless Disturbia gets it.
Exactly. Let's find out. So, direction. So the obvious one would be Hitchcock, but I think Brian De Palma does an exemplary job with his, and again brings us into that very odd world that he's created.
Yeah.
And again, I think it, like I said, I think he betters some of the stuff that Hitchcock had done maybe in Rear Window. I'm not saying he is better than Hitchcock.
No,
I think some of those filmic elements that Hitchcock probably revolutionized, he's gone, well, I can do that, but I can do this with it, or I can improve on that. I can build something with that, or build another thing, or segue that into another thing. So I think there is definitely something to be said for De Palma's Body Double.
There is, and I think DJ Crusoe as well has, along the lines you were saying before, has made the right film for the time in which he was making it, and handles the varying elements of like when to give us CCTV footage, like camcorder footage. He handles that well.
Yeah, transitioning between the two, it can be quite jarring if you do it wrong. But yeah, he's a good director. He's got a very good he's got a good eye when it comes to what he wants, and he gets the results that he wants to do. Like I said, fast, frenetic, all over the show, and yet very laser focused when it needs to be as well. Like when they're figuring out the details and stuff, or where they're figuring out how the tag works and stuff. It was nice to see Viola Davis putting electronic tracking devices on other felons again. That was nice.
After I finished watching it, I was like, who was that? Like, I couldn't even place it. And then, of course, you were messaging today about it. Yeah, absolutely. It's true.
Yeah. It's nice. I wish she had a bigger role in it, to be honest, because I think she was a little wasted. Because I thought her character was quite interesting, kind of the nice yet firm kind of policewoman, person, parole officer, if you will, whatever it was. But yeah, so yeah, this is. I think this is probably the trickiest category.
This is, and I think anytime you're not going to pick Alfred Hitchcock, you're going to have people saying, "How could you not pick him?"
Yeah, exactly.
However, I think De Palma. I think Body Double. I think for similar reasons to what we said about his handling of all the disparate elements, and I completely agree with what you said before. I think more so Vertigo than Rear Window.
Yeah,
I think he's treading in footsteps that have gone before him, but he's making them deeper.
Ooh, nice! I like that.
So I'm going to go Body Double.
Right. Well, I'm going to agree with you.
Pause for dramatic effect.
Yeah, I absolutely have to agree with you. I think there is something as progressive as Rear Window was, and as revolutionary as Rear Window was. There is something about it that feels maybe a little dated. Like it has, it has been 60 years. Like, like it's going to happen. It's literally going to happen. It still holds. It absolutely still holds its power. It's still an excellent film. Again, Disturbia as well, which has kind of been left out in the cold a little bit in this one. But it happens when you got 3 different ones fighting for that position. I have to agree. Yeah, I think the best thing for us to do was to watch Vertigo actually in deciding this, because we both look at Vertigo. We have a similar feeling about Vertigo. It's not great. But then looking at the improvement and taking those kind of core concepts and those core ideas, and De Palma goes, no, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to connect that, and and then I'm going to put all this Hollywood stuff in, and the porn industry, and layer upon layer, like you said, like a big, great onion. And it's great. It's slick, stylish, music's great. So yeah, I have to give it to Body Double, which I didn't expect. Again, I never come in with a decision, because I like the discussion. I like to see where we go and what you think and what I think. But
if you stacked all 3 films up and told me to say which one is the best, I probably would say Rear Window.
Yeah.
But in terms of the categories we're talking about and breaking it down in terms of the elements that make it the film, we've decided, and I think rightly so, that Body Double comes out on top here. So
yeah, if we're going to talk like excellent film, like quality
cinematic
film,
legacy.
yeah, cinematic legacy. If you're going to talk revolutionary, influential, Rear Window would win. I think if you're looking for relatability, I think Disturbia would win.
Yeah, that's a nice point. Yeah.
And if I'm just looking for pure enjoyment, which is what I'm doing these podcasts, I go, which one did I enjoy the most? It is Body Double.
A Body Double is a pure cinema movie. Absolutely, that's like cinema exists for movies like Body Double. Agreed.
Absolutely, and it's a love letter, yet kind of a I don't know, a hate letter as well in some respects to Hollywood. It's got its detractors and its critics and stuff, but whatever you feel about Body Double, everyone's entitled to their opinion. Please tell us which version of Rear Window. Tell us about the other ones that we mentioned as well earlier on. If you prefer those, maybe we can come back and look at those. Maybe another one, another Clone Wars or something. But yeah, that is it. So Body Double. So again, totally surprised me, but again, check out all these films. They're all excellent. I genuinely really enjoyed. Not a bad one in the bunch, genuinely.
No, I watched them all. I had 4 days that I put aside, and it was like 4 days in a row. Rear Window, and then I checked in with you, and I did Vertigo next, and then I did Body Double, and Disturbia. It was a thoroughly enjoyable run of 4 movies in 4 days.
I have to agree as well. I've had a lot of fun kind of binging them over the weekend, and I'm glad I was able to do this with you. And I think this has been a really good discussion. Not sure how long it's gone on now, but
we've tipped over into 2, I think, haven't we?
I think we tipped over into 2, but that's fine. That's fine with me. But yeah, no, really, really good, really fun discussion. Great films again. But this has been a blast, and I will get you on again very, very soon. So before we bring this to a close, you have many podcasts to talk about and to promote. So please go ahead and do that and talk about your social medias and where they can find you.
I will. I'll keep it brief because I'm terrible at this stuff anyway. The main place you can find me is on Twitter. It's IAmJACSMusings. That's JACS. And then I post my diary of consumption on WordPress, which you'll find through there. But my main avenue now, which is becoming more and more prevalent, is podcasting. So I'm on Seasons Greetings along with Tony Farina, a very nice guy who will champion you and everything that you
absolute diamond geezer.
With every fibre of his being, and it will push you to be the best you can be. He's a special person. Very
genuine, loving guy. Couldn't say any more nice things about him, genuinely.
No, it's true. And, everybody who has any contact with him feels the same, I think. Yeah. So we've looked at all of Buffy, and we're halfway through Angel now. Season 3 will be coming out soon.
Oh, I'm so far behind. I have to catch up.
Well, I'll be honest. So am I right now. So we've had to delay it by a couple of weeks because I've got a bit caught up with all my October.
I don't apologise because it'll allow me to get on top of everything, and I can catch up. So that's a good thing for me. I need a little break after all the Grimfest and Shockphobia fests.
Yeah.
All the other.
I've been doing all the Halloweens for one of my adventures for the Pop Gorillas. So we've been going through all the Michael Myers Halloween saga.
I did that a couple of years ago, and the final episode I did it 3 years ago, and the final episode has only just come out and now the podcast starts. So if you want to go,
I need to catch you guys.
Yeah, I can't remember what I said about them, to be honest, because it's been 3 years, for God's sake.
Yeah, fair enough.
But it's a great podcast as well, so check them out. They've also covered Grimfest as well. I've just finished today binging all the Pop Gorillas because they've just came up on Apple Podcasts, which is my particular podcast catcher of choice. So I've absolutely just nailed all of those. Ria's been great. Tony's been great. I love a lot of variety there. And again, in less time than a song. So
yeah, that's the whole concept, isn't it? Like keeping it soundbite, keeping it spoiler free, and just trying to. I need to get out of the mindset of the fact that it needs to be new stuff. Which Halloween is helping me do. Yeah. For a little while I was, kind of beyond trend and on, but really,
you've seen me. I never, it's a proper range of stuff for me, new and
that's not what my viewing is really either. It's here, there, and everywhere. And then also, as you said at the top, I've been promoted to a co-host of Indie Comic Spotlight, courtesy of Tony as well. So, thoroughly enjoying that adventure because as I do with you, I try to read and watch along with all my favourite podcasts. So that now saves me having to read anything because I'm reading it anyway to cover it.
I enjoyed your Project Superpowers episode. That was really fun.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
I love when Tony gets political.
Man, I just sat back. You go, my friend. You go.
It gets all my juices flowing. I'm like, oh, this is good. Ooh,
absolutely.
Yeah. He's great at that, and such a and he gets across all the different points of view, and he's very sensitive about that. And there's certain points of view he very much does not like, and he's very clear about that. But I like his measured way of doing those sort of things, and he's a great guy. And speaking of Rhea.
Yes.
Rhea Carrigan, your sister, will be on this podcast in a couple of weeks' time.
Fantastic.
So November is going to be a brother-sister podcast sandwich, if you will. So she's going to do Secret Defenders, which is usually the first time podcasters often do. I go, what film do you like and nobody else likes? And she's gone with James Gunn's Slither.
Which I very much like too, so I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it for a very long time, so I'm gonna look forward to rewatching that. So yeah, that
is definitely an 18.
Oh yeah. telling me. But yeah, I can't wait to go over that. I love I love a good body horror, so anything like that. And I love James Gunn's work, especially The Suicide Squad that just came out. And that had a lot of tentacles and things in it, didn't it? So
it did. Agreed.
There you go. But Jack, this has been great. But yes,
thank you, sir. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh man, just proper deep discussion, deep dives. This is what we do best here. But yeah, this has been fantastic, and I love looking at some weird and wacky films, but I also like going to kind of classic cinema as well. So
yeah, we've hit a full gamut here, really, haven't we?
We have. We've had classic cinema, sleaze, and a bit of kind of mid 2000s.
Yeah, contemporary commercial.
Techno thriller type thing. But yeah, so you can find me on Facebook. It's at Secret Bores. Twitter, it's at Dan_Bores. Instagram, it's at SpiderDan Secret Bores. And don't forget to use the hashtag Prepare for Prattle. And for everything else you need to know about the podcast, swing over to SpiderDan and thesecretbores.com on the World Wide Web. See what I did there? And I'd like to thank my patrons on Patreon. So IAmJACSMusings, Paul Meller, Max Byrne, Tony Farina, Scott Hodgson, and Simon Cotton, who we've all just mentioned, probably most of them today throughout the podcast anyway. Great guys, and they are so patient because I've been very poor in not doing extra content. So you guys are amazing, considering you don't get as much as you should be getting, and I'm going to make sure you get some stuff out. I have asked what you guys want, because I will literally do whatever you want. I'm going to do 2. You guys just tell me what your best ideas are, and I'll do the best 2 that I decide are the best. And we'll see where we go from there. But there is more Patreon content coming, and if you want to join up, please do. I appreciate as much as you can give, and it does help the podcast and Prattle world keep on turning. But yeah, it's been fantastic. This has been absolutely one of my favorites, Jack. So thanks again.
Great. I'm pleased to be a part of it.
Amazing. Right. Well, take care, and I wish you well.
You too, my friend. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.